welcome back to the Mike Rosehart Show. We're live again for another week, another live stream. Any questions you guys have, of course, throw them in the comments below. So today we are at Disney World. So I'm just outside of Orlando and Kissimmee, staying near the Epcot Center at a local Marriott, as it is. But yeah, so last week, we were in the Bahamas. We did the live stream in the Bahamas. I've been traveling all around Florida. Many more traveling plans coming soon. We'll be doing Europe soon, as well as several other places on the bucket list. And this has just been something that we've put off for a long time in our journey to reach financial independence, retiring early. We did a lot of sacrificing. I mean, we did trips to, we've been to Brazil for a honeymoon, and I've been to Africa and a few other places around the world. And anyway, this video is just about an update. It's been crazy. I don't know if people who have kids have traveled. If you have 2 or 3 kids that are very, very young, and you've never traveled before extensively for longer periods of time, like we've been sort of home, home away from home for coming up on like almost 3 months. We're in our 3rd month. We left at the very start of January. Like it was like the new year and then we left. So all of January, all of February, now we're into March, probably going back to Canada actually in the next few weeks. We have a lot of things at home to wrap up, and my kids miss a lot of their possessions at home, and it's been, honestly, we thought we would stay the whole winter, but things are warming up back home. The tensions are lifting back home. The protests are lifting to an extent. So we're gonna go back home for a bit. And I love Canada, by the way. It's a beautiful place. So hear me, only talk positively about what Canada can become. It is unfortunately right now not the best place from a tax and economic climate perspective. Like if you're a wealthier individual, Canada's, it's not so great. But beautiful landscape. If they had the tax climate of the Bahamas, I mean, during the summers in Canada, it's arguably nicer than anywhere else in the world, especially if you're on the Great Lakes. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, we went to Disney World yesterday. We did the Magic Kingdom. As luck would have it, our ride broke down while we were on it with my 2-year-old, my 5-year-old, and our 11-month-old in the Haunted Mansion ride. Of course, the ride that I really wanted to go on, so we pushed to go on it, and my 5-year-old wanted to go on it as well. She did roller coasters too, which was awesome in Magic Kingdom. I was super proud of her for that. Jump in the comments, by the way, and let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. I know the audio is not amazing tonight. My middle child, as I'll update in a second here. We had a long day at Disney yesterday, and the shuttle didn't come to take us back to our hotel. It was late by like an hour, so we didn't get back to the hotel. Then the shuttle couldn't get into the resort, so we got dropped off at the highway. Had to walk a mile at 11:45 at night because it was just a horrible experience. I wished I had not waited for the shuttle and got the sunk cost fallacy. I wish we just got an Uber from Disney back to the hotel because the shuttles sucked and they were full. Anyway, my daughter got pushed beyond her limits, and I think she had dehydration or something, or I don't know, maybe a flu bug, and she got sick and she started throwing up, and the bus driver's like, it's his first day on the job or something, and he's swerving and braking and starting, and she's throwing up and on the bus into a bag, like throwing up, and it was just a whole event. Our other daughter's 11 months old screaming, and our other daughter's exhausted. It was just quite a journey. I know a lot of Instagrammers that I follow who have 2-3 kids and are traveling the world. They make it sound awesome. It's a whole load of crap that goes with the good, and there's a lot of great things. We've seen a lot of cool things. We drove from Canada here. We drove through, I don't know, we took our time. It was almost through like 12 states, I think. And it was enjoyable, we had a great trip. And, when you're retiring at the age we are, and you have the energy that we do, if you can be purposeful about your trips and you can be very conscious about looking, like most of our trips are dictated by deals. So if we can find a deal somewhere, that's where we end up. And so like we've been staying in hotels for like, in some cases, $60 a night, $70 a night, like hotels that are normally like $400. We rented a house for a month here. That was great. It was really nice to have a location. It was a 4-bed, 3-bath with a private spa and pool. I just called, I was like, I couldn't find anything on Airbnb. It was all like $6,000 a month. And I was like, geez, this is really expensive. I'm like, I'm like Rosehart though. Like, I'm the deal hunter. That's my thing. That's what my God-given skill. And so I got on the phone with some property managers, and I was like, hey, does anyone have a furnished house for like a couple months they just want to rent? And I found one, $3,000 a month, right near Disney. So we stayed for a month in that. You guys have seen some of the videos I did from there. And that was great. And then we went to the Bahamas. We were in the Bahamas for, 9 days, I guess? And that was amazing. That confirmed all of the research I've been doing for the last year. It also confirmed worries that I had. I've been in the midst of planning a post-retirement relocation, so to speak. Most of it's driven by lifestyle and tax implications. So where do we want to be? What's going to be a better lifestyle? And then also the tax ramifications of moving. The top two on my list were Bahamas and Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico stands out if you're going to be investing in stocks and equities. It's the better location, no doubt. Well, it depends. If you're willing to stay in Puerto Rico 184 days a year, then it's great. I think that the Bahamas has some interesting pieces because their tax residency, you can just buy your citizenship really easily. Just buy a property, you're all good. So that's super, super easy. And as a Canadian, if you leave and sell your primary residence and file an exit return, you no longer pay any Canadian tax. You now become a Bahamas tax resident, which is very, very interesting as well. I haven't found anywhere that's close, like within 60 miles of a first world nation that allows that level of freedom. And I think that that's the biggest piece is freedom. Beyond that, the people are amazing there. The food was really good. The investing climate was amazing. The real estate specifically has had like a 50% correction in part due to COVID. So it's ripe with opportunity for capital investment. So just a number of reasons make it a great place to go, for sure. Love hearing about your journey. Thank you. Appreciate that. You can hear me just fine. Good. Glad to hear. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, by the way, shoot them down below. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. One thing I was doing a listing. I'm selling one of my sixplexes in London. Check it out. It's 337 Bowler Road if you guys are interested. We're listing it at 1.47 million, just under 1.5, 1.45, something like that. I gotta double check. I think it's 1.47 we landed on. And in that range. It's wild to me. I was looking at some of the price data, and the average detached house in London, we're talking last fall, like around 6 months ago-ish, was around 690,000. It's now almost $900,000 for a detached average house price in London, Ontario. In 6 months, we've seen, in some months, 10% month over month change in price in London, Ontario, Canada. That to me is like, the average income is not increasing at all in Canada. And so that's very, very perplexing. It's very, very, it's something that I worry a ton about. I think that it's unsustainable for the majority of people moving and living moving into Canada and living in Canada. It's not something that's desirable. It's just, I don't know. I feel a lot right now like Canada could see a huge correction of like 10 or 15%, which I think it's huge. I guess that would take us back to like a few months ago pricing now at this point, eh? Geez, that's radical in my brain. There will be a correction. More likely than not, the average prices will be more flat for a long period of time. And I think my prediction is with the increasing global interest rates, that's going to drive demand for price up, which, hang on, you're like, what? No. You raise interest rates, real estate prices go down because it's not as affordable. So most people have rate holds for 120 days to 150 days, 90 to 150 days, usually around 90 to 120 days. That means that if they get approved just before the rate came in, they've got to rate hold it on that, and so they've got to go find something. So it's going to get even crazier and even hotter for the next 4 months. But then I think it's going to cool big time. So I personally believe that now is the time to sell. I believed it was the time to sell in January. It was the time to sell in December. I disposed of a good portion of my real estate portfolio. I continue to dispose of my real estate portfolio. Unfortunately, the proceeds from that, a lot of it went into tech stocks and into growth stuff. And even plays that are, invested in the future of like the metaverse and cryptocurrency and all of that digital future, where I think, in 5-10 years, that's the future. But that has not done well in the short term. Things like Facebook, I bought some Facebook or PayPal, are down 30 and 40%. And so that sucks to have watched I sold one house for 425,000 and it just got relisted 3 months later for 600, which is like, and it sold for 600. The same house, 3 months apart. They did nothing to it. I literally made less renovating it over the year that I owned it than they did in the 2-3 months they owned it. It's crazy to me how absurd this market is. That will come to an end at some point. Anyway, can you go into a little more into the investment opportunities through their bank? Also, what is going on with the CBDC sand dollar right now? I have no idea about the CBDC sand dollar, and I can't pretend to even have a clue. I'm not going to speak on something that I don't know anything about, but in the general economic climate, there's a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt right now. And FUD affects every component and facet of the market. On top of like one of the FUDs, greatest, I guess, concerns, the group of people that are spewing this FUD, is that there's going to be a World War III. That's top of mind. Russia has invaded Ukraine. China is thinking about Taiwan. Because China and Russia are allies with Cuba, all it would take is China to invade Taiwan and the U.S. to respond. They would then have to respond in some way because they basically are a partner with Taiwan for all their chips and all their computers and everything, including mining rigs and including all the Teslas and everything. Everything needs the chips. So it would be World War III if that happens. So there's a risk of that. There's a serious risk that the conflict could escalate. They're already at war over there, right, in Europe, and it's a horrible situation. And it's, I've just been watching, and it's sad on all sides. I believe in peace. I think war is horrible. It's a horrible, scary time. That's created a lot of uncertainty and doubt, which you could use to profit, or you could just stay out of it and be like, I don't know what's going to happen. A lot of people are like, whoa, sell, I'm out. I'm just going to watch and see what happens. Everyone has their own strategy. Next, you've got the highest inflation rates in the developed world that we've seen since the late 80s. We are living in the late 80s. For a long time, I've been quoted on this channel 3 years ago saying that it would be impossible for inflation to reach 10%. We've hit that. There have been months where there's 10% year-over-year inflation. I didn't think that was possible in my lifetime. But as you heard me say in the last 2 years, I watched as the governments around the world printed, and they printed a ton of fiat. And someone has to pay for that, and they can't increase their tax revenue that fast. They will, by the way. Another reason to get out of the developed world is Canada, specifically the US too, but Canada's worse than the US for sure in their printing of fiat currency. They're going to need to raise money to pay for that. And they can only raise interest rates so much, or the global debt will collapse the government. Even as they raise interest rates, they need to raise more revenue. So they're going to have to tax the people. Again, a reason why I'm getting out of Canada. That tax hammer is going to come down hard, or the currency is going to collapse, or we go into mad inflation and the currency collapses. In the next 50 years, it will happen. The current fiat petrodollar system will collapse. It's just the government targets 2.5% a year. So if you do the math on that, they're trying to devalue your money at 2.5% a year compounded. So within 20, 30 years, your money's halved in value. That's the goal. And they're failing at hitting those benchmarks. It's real inflation in the real estate market, and a lot of the food prices is 30 and 40% year over year. That to me is like, it's just bananas. Sorry guys. It's just bananas to me that this crazy world. There's the inflation piece, and then of course there's rising interest rates, which crushes all growth in tech and innovation. As you raise interest rates, people tend not to want to invest in a lot of the value plays. They tend to want to take their capital and throw it elsewhere. They want to put it in a savings account, or people aren't sure what to do as you raise interest rates. They want to find, typically they flock to bonds because the bonds start paying better, right? Rising interest rates crush the face value of bonds though, right? So just be careful. I've never been a fan of bonds, still not a fan of bonds. There are much better investment vehicles to get fixed rates of return. You could do private lending mortgages backed by real estate with way less risk than government bonds, because you can go 60% loan to value. And by the way, Canadian real estate the government bonds would default before the Canadian real estate would crash 50% in the long term. They would step in and force the prices up. That's just it would crush the economy. They would have to do it. So there's a bit of safety in that, and there are ways you can invest in private mortgages at like 10% rate of return. Currently, bonds are paying like 1 to 2%, right? So for 10x the return at almost the same risk level, bonds suck. What else can I tell you guys? Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what's going on right now. Let's see here. I saw your question pop up here. Hey, Dexter. How's it going? Come over to the hotel. Let's go for a hot tub. It's your last night. See if the price of Uber jumps down. Keep an eye on it. I'll shoot you a couple bucks towards your Uber fare. Tristan says, will you have a house in Florida? Is it cumbersome to own a home there? So Tristan, it really depends on your goals. It's not a huge deal to have a property here in a corp or in your personal name. However, you now have to file a US tax return. That is cumbersome in my opinion, but it depends on how you define it. Like if you don't have a lot of things going on, you work a regular job, or you got like 1 or 2 sources of income, your tax return is not that complex. Filing a US tax return requires you to declare all of your worldwide income. That's a huge deal because now you got to disclose all the stuff you're doing in Canada too to the US government. Not that you have to pay tax on it, but it's something. As a foreigner filing a tax return there's some complexities to that. In the Bahamas, there are no tax returns personally. So it creates no extra paperwork, so to speak, by buying a property there as a foreign investor. So from a ease perspective, yeah, I think that Florida isn't as easy. But Florida is ripe with opportunity for investment in the multifamily space. I've currently got an interesting project under contract. If anyone's watching and is interested in participating, I'm looking for like 1 or 2 partners. I don't really, I'm not looking for like trying to syndicate it or something like that. But a really interesting deal for between $4.5 and $5 million with an ARV of 10 million. And it's got 25 units right on the water. I could add 14 more dock slips. You could expand and build like a clubhouse and a big infinity pool. It's right in downtown near Stewart. Beautiful, right on the water there, and an amazing Airbnb town. So I've got an opportunity there. If anyone's got a couple of mil and wants to partner up on that kind of stuff is interesting. The cap rates here and the flexibility of the landlord laws and all of that here in Florida is way more attractive than what's going on in Canada. You can just do so much better here in Florida. But yeah, I think strategically speaking, there would always be a place that I could go to in Florida and go back and forth between the Bahamas and Florida. I don't think I want to live in Florida. I crunched the numbers and I thought about it. We thought about moving to Florida. Just the federal tax rate at my income or forecasted income, I guess in the US I'd have a forecasted income, would be like 37%. So I'd be paying federal tax at 37% in Florida. There is no state tax. That's something. In Canada now I pay 55, I guess. So it'd be a reduction from 54 or whatever to 36, 37. With deductions, I could probably get that down to like 30 or something in Florida, maybe 25. You get a nice car, you run through your corp, whatever, tons of accounting magic you can do. People, write a whole bunch of shit off. There's a lot of ways to get it down, but when you compare that to, say, Puerto Rico, where it's 0, or Bahamas, well, Puerto Rico isn't necessarily 0. If you're in a business there, it might be like 5, 6%. Depends on what you're doing in Puerto Rico. In the Bahamas, it's 0. There's no tax at all. When you compare the two, Bahamas went out in a big way. So I don't think I'll be setting up an HQ in Florida, but I love Florida and I'll be continuing to visit Florida. I have in-laws that are in Florida, so I'll continue to visit Florida, and I think that the amenities of the first world